Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the European Information Days of the LIFE program, edition 2025. Today is Wednesday, 14th of May, 2025, and we are going to introduce you to the calls for proposals for standard action projects of the LIFE program. In fact, CINEA, which is the Climate, Infrastructure and Environment Executive Agency of the European Union, has published last month in April a series of calls for proposals for grants under the LIFE program. And you can find all the calls for proposals in the Funding and Tender Opportunities portal of the European Union. And we warmly recommend you, future applicants, to go and look at the calls and read them carefully. But we, as CINEA, organized this event over 3 days so that we can give you all the information that you need in order to be able to apply, to prepare good proposal for your project and to increase the chances to get funding through the LIFE program. So today will be dedicated to calls for proposals for standard action projects under 3 sub-programs of LIFE. First, we will start with the calls for proposals for climate action projects that includes climate change mitigation and climate change adaptation. Then we will present calls for proposals for a circular economy and quality of life. And finally, calls for proposals for nature and biodiversity. Then in the afternoon, we will also have a general session on the application process and the evaluation process to give you more insight about how to apply and how your proposal will be evaluated. Please note also that after each information session on each call, you will have time for questions. We will try to answer as many questions as possible. And to do that, please connect through Slido. So go to slido.com and type #EULife25 so that you can both ask questions, but please do so only at the right time during the relevant session. And even better, when you ask questions, do it only at the end of the presentation. And then you can also use Slido to give us feedback about the information session that you just listened to. So we will ask you how satisfied you are with the information you just received. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our first session on calls for proposals for climate action, standard action projects. And therefore, I would like to invite my colleague Bernd Decker, Head of Sector in the LIFE Unit Climate and Energy at CINEA. Hi, Bernd, welcome. I think you will moderate this session, so I will leave you the floor. Thanks to everybody. Have a good day.
Thank you, Eva, and welcome everyone to this session on climate change mitigation and adaptation. I am head of sector of the sub-program for climate action, the LIFE climate action sub-program, and we, together with 11 colleagues, we are managing this from the CINEA side. So the purpose of this session is to provide you with further information on the latest climate action policies of the European Commission. But most important will be to present you with the specific climate action priorities for this 2025 call for proposals. You will hear about the lessons from an experienced project representative. And finally, we will answer all your questions regarding this climate action call. The LIFE Climate Action Sub-Program was established in 2014, so we just celebrated the 10th anniversary last year. And since then, the European Commission has co-financed more than 350 climate action or climate change mitigation and adaptation projects. We implement local, regional, national, European climate policies with this sub-program, or you implement, or the successful applicants and the project coordinators, they implement those policies with very concrete, innovative and best practice projects. Proposals which have high relevance or the highest relevance and score highest in the first award criterion. I'm sure you have read already the call documents. So those ones who are rated highest usually address the latest urban policy developments. And for this, I would like to invite Stephanie Hiesinger. She's head of unit of the Directorate General Climate Action of the unit Low Carbon Solutions, Research and Low Carbon Technology Development. And she will present you the current climate action policy context. Stephanie, the floor is yours and you have 10 minutes for your presentation.
Thank you, Bernd, and good morning, everybody, also from my side. I'm very happy to be here to provide you a bit of the policy context that has also changed over the past months, not only because we have started a new mandate of the European Commission and have, well, I'll get to that, new commissioners, but also commissioners that have already been there before in terms of climate action. So it's quite good to take stock where we stand in terms of the policy context of the climate policy in the EU. If we go to the first slide, just a little recap of what the IPCC report tells us and where we are in terms of the need for climate action, so to say. The IPCC synthesis report emphasizes the urgent need for significant and immediate reductions in greenhouse gas emissions to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. And it's highlighting also the worsening impacts of climate change on ecosystems, weather patterns, and human societies. It underscores the importance of transitioning to renewable energy sources, improving energy efficiency, and adopting sustainable land use practices to mitigate these impacts, and stresses the critical role of international cooperation and equitable policy measures in addressing climate challenges and enhancing resilience, in particular for vulnerable communities worldwide. And why am I saying this? Because in particular, what I just said is the driver behind the climate action at European level. We know that climate change is human-induced, and we also know, and if we move to the next slide, that in particular the costs of inactions will be very, very high. So just to give you a bit of an overview, what happens if we do not act? So in particular in the EU, we're then looking at a 3-degree scenario by the year 2100. Well, I'm not sure that this is still within my lifetime, but for some of you that may be true. But in particular, in terms of heat and drought, we estimate that we would then face 90,000 annual deaths due to heat waves. We already have these heat waves now with a significant number of deaths every year in certain regions of the EU. Water scarcity, around 65 million people live in areas with water resources already under stress. In terms of flooding, well, 50 billion per year in economic losses due to increased flooding frequency and severity expected. And in terms of overall economics, this leads then to an annual welfare loss of around 175 billion euros. So all in all, quite a dire outlook, and that's why immediate action is needed. What is the EU doing to achieve climate neutrality? Well, we have adopted, and there's an overview on the next slide, the European climate law already a few years back. That sets a target of minus 55% to be reached by 2030 compared to 1990 levels. This target setting exercise has been followed by an extensive legislative phase reviewing the entire climate and energy policy of the EU, which was called the Fit for 55 package. This package is adopted already for a few years, and we are in the process of implementing the policies that had been agreed at the time to reach the 55% target. Now we are already moving then forward because the European climate law also not only sets a target for 2030, but it also sets, and more importantly, a climate neutrality target by 2050. So we are on a trajectory towards reaching climate neutrality by 2050. And as a step in the middle, the European climate law foresees that the Commission should also set propose a 2040 target. And we have recommended on the side of the Commission a 90% target, which has not yet been formally proposed, but that is going to happen, and or at least that is the intention, that we will make a proposal to amend the European climate law in that sense. So far, we have decreased our emissions since 1990 by 37% by 2023. The figures for 2024 are not yet established. If we move to the next slide, we have in the Climate Action Progress Report that you can access also via our website, given you more details as to how well the EU is doing in terms of progress towards reaching its target. So the net greenhouse gas emissions decreased by 8% in 2023 compared to 2022. Well, I already said compared to 1919 levels, we are now 37% below those levels in 2023. And I think what's more important is that the transition is underway in many, many sectors. So compared to 2022, emissions in particular from electricity and heating decreased by 24%, which is driven by a large growth in wind and solar energy, and in particular then transitioning us away from coal, but also in certain parts from fossil gas. However, we know that there's still quite some way to go towards reaching climate neutrality, so the reductions will have to accelerate so that we stay on course. On the next slide, and I think we can skip this overview slide and directly move to the new commissioners. So in December, the current commission started its new mandate, still under the leadership of President von der Leyen. We have other or new commissioners, and in particular, we welcome Teresa Ribeira as Executive Vice President for the Clean, Just and Competitive Transition. Wopke Hoekstra was already Commissioner for Climate before, so in the previous mandate, but he is or has been reconfirmed as Commissioner for Climate also for this mandate. They are overseeing together the climate portfolio. Teresa Ribeira, in her role as Executive Vice President, oversees the climate policies and in particular the link to the European competitiveness as well as the just and social transition. And Commissioner Hoekstra is responsible for the climate policy in general. He's also responsible to ensure that the tax system that member states have supports the clean and just transition. On the next slide, a word on the political priorities for this mandate, as the Commission President has outlined them in not only the political guidelines, but also already in a few communications that have been adopted since then. In particular, in February, we adopted the Clean Industrial Deal that answers the question how in the transition the EU can stay competitive. The political guidelines also reconfirm the 90% emission reduction target that I already mentioned that we have recommended in 2024. One other priority also includes rolling out the Social Climate Fund, which is very closely related to the introduction of a new emissions trading system for road transport and buildings. Another priority is going to be the European Climate Adaptation Plan to support member states in terms of enhancing climate resilience and preparedness. And then finally, what is also really important for this mandate, and I also already mentioned, is the implementation of the Fit for 55 package as we move towards 2030. Just a quick word, because time is also running out, but it's quite important to highlight all these initiatives, in particular the Clean Industrial Deal, which is on the one hand staying the course on the goals set in the European Green Deal, not least the climate neutrality target enshrined in the climate law. So we are moving forward in the transition towards climate neutrality. But we also know that our businesses are struggling or the industries are struggling in particular to build a sufficient business case for the transition. And that's what the Clean Industrial Deal tries to address. The intention is to make our industry competitive in this transition and create quality jobs. The Clean Industrial Deal has identified 6 drivers for that business case. And well, one quite important driver is, of course, access to funding, but also access to affordable energy. Skills is another driver that is very important, but also international cooperation, as I mentioned before. In terms of the 2040 climate target, if we move to the next slide, the Commission has, as I said, recommended the 90% target. We have conducted a number of public consultations already in 2023, and we are working towards a proposal, as I said, of amending the European climate law. Moving to the next slide. The Social Climate Fund is very important in relation to the introduction of the new ETS. As I said, it is a financial mechanism aimed at mitigating the social and economic impact of the introduction of this new emissions trading system. It will support vulnerable households, micro enterprises, and transport users who are likely to be affected by the impact on carbon pricing on energy prices and transport fuels. And it is quite an important mechanism to ensure that the transition happens in a socially fair manner to support the renovations and energy efficient housing across the EU and across the different member states. On the next slide, the European Climate Adaptation Plan is foreseen for 2026, and it will assess the risks and preparedness in critical areas like energy, water, and infrastructure, and it will also complement a European water resilience strategy that is supposed to combat water scarcity and water stress. As I said, we know in quite many regions of the EU, the water supply starts to be under stress. On the next slide, the implementation of the existing legislation and the Fit for 55 package. It's quite important to underline that we will stay the course. So this is very important that the policies already decided are rolled out so that we reach the minus 55% in 2030. I will not repeat everything that was decided. I think we touched upon that. It's the Fit for 55 package is a quite coherent and comprehensive package. So there's a lot to be done in many areas and on different levels. On the one side, on the side of the Commission with delegated acts and regulations to be adopted, but on the other hand, also on the side of the Member States with the updates of the national energy and climate plans, aligning the targets or aligning national policies with the new targets at EU level. But that is already underway. Still some work to be done, but yeah, we are quite confident that this is going to lead us to minus 55%. And I think I come to the end of my presentation. And I thank you a lot for your attention this morning. And I wish you a very pleasant and good day today, with lots of good presentations on the climate part of the LIFE program. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Your Director General, as one of the 3 partner DGs of the LIFE program, you're responsible for the priorities of the multi-annual work program and respectively also the call documents. So everything which you presented here is either part of the new multi-annual work program or also reference in the call priorities. And the website of the DG Climate Action, of course, contains all the details related to this presentation. So for the this current call, please remember that it is the first call under the second multi-annual work program, which was adopted in April this year. And usually we keep the call priorities stable during the lifetime of a multi-annual work program. And in this case, the multi-annual work program will run until 2027. So we still have 3 call for proposals up front. And we try to address, of course, new developments in call priorities, but we also ensure you that the priorities remain stable for the coming years, for the coming calls for proposals. To a great extent, the LIFE program is a bottom-up funding program, and any innovative ideas which contribute to the objectives of the LIFE program are equally eligible under this call, even if they are not mentioned as a priority. However, to acquire relevant points in the award criterion on relevance, you will have to address these call priorities with your proposal. So I would hand over now to the next presentation. My colleagues Krzyszek Wojcek, Hanna Mandelikova, Miriam Witschke, and Diana Oanja will now present you the priorities of this call 2025 and will also illustrate the call with a couple of examples. So Chris, I would like to ask you to start the presentation.
Thank you, Bernd. Welcome, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you. My name is Chris, and as Ben said, I want to invite you now to dive into a very important part of life, which is the climate standard action projects. And while we call it standard projects, please don't be misled by the name, as I can assure you that what we mean is the very special and unique initiatives we are supporting and we are expecting from your side. So together with the colleagues, we will try to guide you through the exciting possibilities that we prepared for you this year within the call. And since you are the experts, the practitioners and the stakeholders, you have already in mind probably very great ideas, and this is exactly what we are looking for in that call. So please come, prepare the application, and try to find yourself in one of our 3 areas, which is the climate change mitigation, climate change adaptation, and the governance. And this is what we'll explain it to you now in the details. Just please remember, always check in detail the call document. We will guide you now with the more directional information, but you always need to check the details in the call document. This is very, very much important. So the next slide, please, and let's dive now into the climate change mitigation, the first part. Of course, the main objective is the reduction of the greenhouse gas emissions for that part of life. In the first area of intervention, what we want to focus on is the minimizing the use, support recovery, recycling, and reclamation of the ozone depleting substances in the foams, such as, for example, as the chlorofluorocarbons. And this is of the crucial importance during the renovation or demolishment of the buildings when the foams are crushed and shredded, and then they are releasing the ODS. We also want to target the recovery, reclamation, and recycling of the F-gases, which were introduced to replace the ODS, but of course they are still very powerful climate gases themselves. So we want to support the suitable alternatives to them with no or very low global warming potential. Finally, in that area, in order to accelerate the adoption of the climate-friendly refrigerants, we must address the outdated safety standards for the refrigerations, for the air conditioning, or the heat pumps. So what we are looking for, among the others, are the projects which will support the standard setting bodies with the objective data and the new technical specification to target that issue. The second area of the intervention in that part is, of course, the push for the zero emission mobility in the road transport. So we want to encourage you a lot to support the implementation of the sustainable urban mobility plans, extremely important development for the urban areas to live in a better conditions, to provide cleaner environment, and to live better with low emission. Also, we look for the projects which follow in actions the EU sustainable and smart mobility strategy. What we have in mind in that part are, for example, dedicated infrastructure for zero emission vehicles and mobility, green hydrogen facilities and production, or, for example, smart recharging solutions. Next slide, please. The third area within the climate change mitigation is the decarbonization of all the transport modes, supporting intermodality and the modal shift. What we want to finance in that part are the technologies to reduce energy needed to perform the given transport services, such as, for example, the aerodynamics, hydrodynamics, reduction of the weight, or the efficient propulsion system. We also seek for the projects that are supporting operational solution at the hubs, like the harbors, ports, and the airports. And intermodal projects focus on the modes and routes optimization, integrated data sharing, or flexible switching between the modes. The fourth area of intervention is renewable energy and improvement of the energy efficiency. So what we have in mind in here is mainly the Repower EU, the production of biogas, biomethane from the waste, and residue streams. So projects in that part should support production of biogas, digest or biochar for the markets, and focus, for example, on anaerobic digestion, gasification, with the emphasis on upgrading to biomethane for the grid injections. Next slide, please. The fifth area, I didn't see for the slide for the second. So the fifth area is the reduction of energy use and the greenhouse gas emissions in industrial production. and the waste management. So what we want to support in here is the advanced manufacturing and processing of clean technologies and solutions, as well as the reduction of the use of the primary raw materials. We should focus on the EU industries with the special focus on the energy intensive industries in that part. The priority will be given to development, demonstration of innovative and cost-efficient, effective technologies and processes, design, development, implementation of innovative solution, mainly via the demonstration programs with a long-term impact, including in real industrial environment. This is very much important. What we expect from you is to start your projects no lower at the TRL level 5, this is the technology readiness level, and to target at least TRL 8 and 9. The proposal may, of course, address a variety of technological solutions and processes, so please don't be shy. Try your chances. Please come to us with your application, and we'll try to help you and assist us in the best way. The sixth area will be now presented by my colleague Hanna. Hanna, please take the floor.
Good morning, also from my side. So I'm here to present the sixth area of intervention, which is development and implementation of land and coastal management practices, which have an impact on emissions and carbon removals, including the conservation and enhancement of natural carbon sinks in soil and forest, and the storage of carbon in long-lasting products. The standard action projects under this area of intervention should be in line with both the EU's higher mitigation ambition and the objective to provide individual actors with financial incentive for land-based carbon sequestration and storage. What kind of practices do we have in mind? Practices that enhance carbon removals in soil and biomass, such as sustainable forest management or improved forest management, practices that protect existing carbon stock in soils and biomass, for example, the restoration of peatlands, use of harvested biomass in long-lasting products to ensure long-term carbon storage, circular use of bio-based products, and utilization of bio-based products other than wood, such as hemp or agricultural residues or byproducts, practices that decrease non-CO2 emissions from agriculture activities. For example, sustainable livestock or manure management or bio-based fertilizers. Those projects should promote carbon farming approach and contribute to the objective of the framework for certification of carbon removals and carbon farming, and or promote carbon storage in buildings approach and contribute to the objective of the framework for the certification of long-term biogenic carbon storage in building. The next area of intervention, the seventh and the last under climate change mitigation, is industrial solutions for carbon removal, carbon capture and use, and or storage. This call encourages projects to remove CO2 from the atmosphere or biogenic sources in order to store it safely and durably. The practices such as enhanced rock weathering, biochar carbon removal, small modular bio-CCS installations, or ocean alkalinity enhancement are encouraged. Now it's time for Chris to present the first example.
I'm coming back. Thank you, Hanna. The next slide, please. We thought that a very good idea for you to give you a bit of the taste of what we are looking for and what kind of the projects we support will provide you with those examples. So that one, this is a great Spanish project that was targeting the manufacturing of the bricks made from the new waste-based materials and with the use of the new technology, which is called alkaline activation process. And with the respect to the traditional ceramic one, this is about the substitution of the firing stage conducted at the temperatures above 1000 degrees by the curing stage carried out with a very low temperature below 150 degrees, and the possibility of recycling a wide variety of industrial waste. So this is what we have in mind in that part, with the big reduction, as you can see, of over 92% of the emissions. So these are the projects that we are looking for. The next example on the next slide will be coming back to Hannah once more.
I'm back, and I will present another example of climate change mitigation. LIFE Multi-Peat, full name is Multi-Stakeholder Landscape and Technical Innovation Leading to Peatland Ecosystem Restoration. This project it takes 5 years, and it focuses on large-scale restoration of degraded peatlands in 5 different member states: Poland, Germany, Belgium, Netherlands, and Ireland. These works lead to cessation of significant GHG emissions, and also it helps to restore the carbon sink function of these ecosystems. This project also helps to improve the knowledge and the techniques and tools for measuring of GHG emissions. And it develops different very effective tools which bring together different sources of different information and data which are relevant for policymakers, climate change activists, public experts, whoever needs data on peatlands. At the end of the project will issue carbon credit certificates for each verified ton of carbon saved by the project, and they will sell it. Thank you very much. And now it's time to pass floor to climate change adaptation and my colleague Miriam Witschke.
Thank you, Hannah. I will indeed present you the priorities for the climate change adaptation intervention areas. Before I go into each intervention area, I would like to stress that all projects should enhance the adaptive capacity, strengthen resilience, and reduce the vulnerability related to climate change. So this is very important as the overall umbrella. In that area, also the intervention logic should follow specific steps. For example, they should detail specific climate risks and vulnerabilities that they want to address, suitability of the proposed adaptation options and methods based on these identified risks and vulnerabilities, and also implement these options and methods during the project. Also, of course, approach for monitoring and evaluation of results is key here. On the first intervention area, which is centered around governance, you have the support, a project that should support the development of climate adaptation policies and the revision of national, regional, and local climate adaptation strategies and plans. So here the project should help really the different public authorities, be it national, regional, or local, to improve and have more effective and science-based adaptation policies and strategies, also across sectors. So this also implies mainstreaming of adaptation aspects into sectoral policies and plans. But also cooperation across borders, so adaptation challenges identified for EU macro regions, for example, the Baltic Sea region, sea basins, or maritime strategies. So synergies across programs are very important here, for example, INSHRAC or Common Agriculture Policy. So the key principles of climate risk management should be mainstreamed also to ensure policy coherence, for example, in regulation, funding opportunities, prevention and preparedness, and the management of risks. Empowering risk owners is also mentioned, in particular, also best practices for common adaptation challenges in the outermost regions. Next slide, please. So the next area is about implementing state-of-the-art tools for climate risk assessment or selection of cost-effective adaptation measures, dealing with identified climate threats and solutions for adaptation. So here the idea is really to make best use of state-of-the-art climate data and information, make this more accessible with tools that are tailored to the user's needs. So this can be adaptation-related modeling aspects, considering current and future climate impacts, but also related to risk assessment, management, and decision support. Also to select the best options, considering multiple benefits, and of course, adaptation monitoring and evaluation. What is very important here is that the tool should be really used and demonstrated within the project. And also, there should be a clear strategy how to maintain those projects after the project ended. Thank you. Next slide. So the next intervention area is about nature-based solutions. So the development and implementation of nature-based solutions for different types of areas, so like urban, and you can distinguish here a little bit. So the focus should be really on the rollout of viable nature-based solution for adaptation. So that can be to protect, for example, critical infrastructure, land, coastal and marine areas. So that can be tackled from different aspects. So that can be projects that provide the necessary assessments of nature-based solutions, guidance, capacity building, also suitable financial approaches, or projects that have to quantify the benefits of implementing nature-based solutions to have a better basis for decision making and to ensure uptake. Leveraging of more investments on nature-based solution, I also mentioned, also to consider multiple benefits, such as gains related to mitigation as well, disaster risk reduction, biodiversity and health, synergies with land-based carbon removals, for example, are also encouraged here. Thank you. Next slide. The next intervention area is about climate proofing and resilience of infrastructure and buildings. Here, the idea is really to pilot, roll out, and promote solutions to climate proofing and enhancing the resilience of buildings and infrastructure. So to also work more in synergies with broader work on disaster risk prevention and reduction. So integration of climate resilience considerations in construction projects, but also in the renovation initiatives of buildings and infrastructure. And also what is very important is the cooperation related to climate proofing standards and addressing barriers in that area. Integration also of climate risk in the assessment of existing built environment, for example, in national processes for environmental risk assessments. And here I want to mention in particular two technical guidance notes at EU levels, the EU level guidance on adaptation for buildings to climate change, which has a lot of information and examples that are useful to take a look at, and also the technical guidance on climate proofing of infrastructure, in particular for big investment projects under structured funds, but these also provide a lot of guidance on methodologies in that area. Next slide, please. So the next area is adaptation solutions for agriculture and forestry. So here it's really to ensure the resilience of the European forests and a transition to a more sustainable form of agriculture and forests, and that help to speed up and roll out adaptation solutions to tackle climate risks and find suitable adaptation approaches. So here it's really to incentivize and roll out solutions, for example, nature-based solutions, and find climate risk reducing projects for afforestation, reforestation, and forest restoration or forest management systems. Encourage the better use of genetic diversity and non-harmful and more climate resilient plants. Also speed up the delivery and accessibility, for example, through climate resilient decision support mechanisms. Water saving technologies and practices, for example, can be encouraged in agriculture, but also new business models and financial incentives are relevant here. Also considering carbon removal benefits. So next slide, please. The next intervention area is on water management. So here, this priority addresses water from different aspects, so water quality and quantity aspects linked to climate risks. So the overall objective is to find solutions to ensure stable and secure supply of fresh water, but also to prevent droughts and floods, restore wetlands. Integration of climate resilience aspects into water management approaches across sectors and borders. Also improve water saving performance and promote wider use of drought and sustainable soil and land use management practices. Next slide, please. Then the next area is relatively new, so climate adaptation and health. Here, it's really important to address projects that address the link between climate change and health. For example, that help implementing policies that support adaptation action and address climate-related impacts on health. That can be, for example, through heat health action plans. Projects that have positive impacts or tackle climate resilience of health systems and climate literate health workforce and healthcare services. Synergies related to climate and health related investments are relevant, also including monitoring and evaluation. Here, I would like to mention the European Observatory on Climate and Health, which has a lot of resources available in that area. Also, the European Environment Agency publishes regularly reports related to climate impacts and human health. So the latest is, for example, on floods, droughts, and water quality. Next slide, please. So the next one, intervention areas on preparedness for compound risk and cascading risks. Here, it's really, the objective is to support preparedness for extreme weather events and multiple risks that come together, also cascading effects that are resulting. And here, in particular, outermost regions, the EU outermost regions are mentioned that have particular challenges due to their insularity, specific topography. And also here, there are already a number of good solutions and examples available, which we encourage you to take a look at. Next slide is on intervention areas on financial instruments, innovative solutions, public-private collaboration on insurance and loss data. Here we encourage financial instruments and innovative solutions that really deal with climate-induced risks, public-private partnerships with insurers that reduce and share of climate-related losses, that promote and increase insurance offers and reduce the insurance production gap. The dialogue between the different stakeholders here is mentioned. That is important. And also to improve data collection in terms of completeness and gaps that are identified. Next slide, please. Yeah, also here, I would like to provide a few examples. I will not go into details here, just to illustrate the priorities. For example, we have two projects here in dealing with the built environment and the challenges related to heat islands, heat waves. There's the project Life Cool Life Almada in Portugal that addresses heat waves through and heat stress through 4 different dimensions, from the level of the air temperature, at the level of the buildings, and the soil, as well at the level of the living space and the users and populations in the city. The next project, Live Arctic Klima in Poland, has developed a methodology and collaborations with large-scale commercial facility owners in Poland, for example, shopping centers and concert halls and airports, and they have developed cooperation agreements to implement their methodology, which covers vulnerability and risk assessment, but also detailed adaptation plans and nature-based solutions. And for example, they have assessed 32 buildings and their surroundings to make them more climate resilient, including the Katowice airport. Next slide, please. So there are two examples, one on forest management of the Mediterranean forests that's implemented in Spain, the Live Red Bosques Klima, and the objective is to achieve a greater capacity for adaptation to climate change, promoting here effective adaptation measures and good forest management practices in forestry, combining also conservation objectives. And the other project is addressing climate adaptation and health, which is the project called Resistal, and it is implemented in different European countries in the project. The partnership works together with hospitals to improve the resilience of healthcare facilities and address their challenges, be it as a critical infrastructure, but also to improve the operational capacity and capacity building of the healthcare staff, and also to raise awareness about this topic. I think I will close here. I just would like to encourage you to really take a look at the live project database, where you find many more examples. But the interest of time, of course, we cannot go into more details here. But I hand over now to my colleague Diana, who will continue with the governance and information thread.
Thank you, Miriam. So next slide, we will move to the governance and information strand. Could we have the next slide, please? Thank you. So the first priority area is well-known priority area by now: raise awareness, incentivize behavioral change, and support activities of the European Climate Pact. So we look forward to projects that address the political priorities, like raising awareness on the role of carbon removals and carbon farming, benefits and risks of carbon capture and storage, or, for example, on the functioning of the EU emission trading systems for building, road transport, and additional sectors. Next slide, please. Second priority area refers to green skills and capacity buildings. So here we encourage projects that develop curricula and training courses or certification schemes for climate and environmental professionals, or help develop regional and national carbon capture and storage plans based on relevant geological capacities, or projects that develop sector-specific climate dialogues among key stakeholders in order to draw up indicatory voluntary sectoral roadmaps for transition toward carbon neutrality. Next slide, please. A third priority area is on building capacity, raising awareness among end users and the equipment distribution chain of fluorinating greenhouse gases. So here we look for training of personnel to service equipment, or building capacity and raise awareness between end users and the equipment distribution chain. The next priority is to support development, update, and implementation of national, regional, and local climate energy strategies and plans in order to promote climate neutrality by 2050 and to enhance cooperation between stakeholders. Next slide, please. Then a fifth priority is on activities linked to the development and the implementation of the sustainable finance actions. Here we look forward to measures to evaluate various sectors of the economy, to assess the progress of the implementation of the EU sustainable finance strategy and its impacts, or to have methods to compare easier different plans and targets, including scenario analysis on risks and exposures and corporate investment plans. Then a sixth priority area is greenhouse gas emissions monitoring and reporting. We need to strengthen these aspects at national, regional, and local level, and enhance the cooperation and coordination between the authorities and different actors. Next slide, please. Then a seventh priority is on the development of geographically explicit inventories for the LULUCF sector, creation of carbon removal registries and certification schemes, and organization of capacity building activities and advisory services. Here we look forward to projects that, for example, design monitoring, reporting, and verification methodologies for quantifying nature-based carbon removals or carbon storage in products, or projects that organize a transparent and credible process for carbon certification of carbon removals, or projects that set up publicly available registries to record carbon removal certificates in a transparent way and to avoid double counting, among other areas. Then we can move to the next slide. Next area of intervention is on knowledge sharing and capacity building on the functioning of the EETS. And here, as in the past, we look for more expertise for building support for carbon markets, have more data, and also more evaluation of policies and measures. The next priority is on climate policy monitoring and ex post evaluation. We look for all these aspects at national, regional, and local levels, and, for example, comparative assessment of different policies and cooperation of stakeholders. Next slide. So I have introduced you to the priorities, and now I would like to kind of illustrate one of the priorities with a project from Poland that is setting up a model of cooperation between the state authorities and the other entities to improve the monitoring of hydrofluorocarbons and their illegal trade. It's a project of 3 years, and among other things, they're developing tools to improve the monitoring and reporting of greenhouse gas emissions and control train. They provide trainings, and they provide a platform for exchange between the authorities and the refrigeration and air conditioning industry. And raise public awareness on the emissions resulting from the illegal trade of hydrofluorocarbons and their impact on global warming. Next slide, please. So after presenting to you all these priorities, let me remind you a bit the important dates and aspects of this call. So the call was published on the 24th of April, 2025. The deadline for submission will be on the 23rd of September, 2025. I remind you that the maximum funding rate is 60% for the Klima Strand, and the indicative available budget for the current call is 61,500,000 euros. And you may expect your grant to be signed by May-June 2026. How the money is divided? Climate mitigation and climate adaptation have an equal share of 28 million. That means that we expect to finance more or less 10 projects, while governance and information has a budget of 5.5 million. That means that we expect around 4 projects. So thank you very much for your stoicism to go through all these priority areas. We will now move to present the experience of one project. So I will give the floor to Mr. Martin Rolf. Martin, are you with us?
I'm with you. Yes, I am.
Thank you. The floor is yours.
I hope you can hear me. Good. Thanks a lot, first of all, for the invitation here, and good morning to everyone in the call here. So thanks everybody in the line there for joining us today. So my name is Martin Rolf. I'm with Siemens Energy, and as a company, we are working on supporting the energy transition. So with the development of solutions, of products, of services, whatever helps for the energy transition. And me personally, I'm very much involved in projects on the grid side for innovation, for R&D, and where we try to get as well support from public funding, such as the LIFE program here. So that's why we applied as well in the LIFE program, and successfully we were part of the lucky guys who survived the application phase there with our application, and then we were invited for the grant agreement phase, and right now we are in the execution of a nice program project which is co-funded by LIFE, and so that's why I'm quite happy to share with you today a few experience, lessons learned, takeaways, which will certainly be project-specific ones, and as well probably personal ones, what I took away from all these different phases of the project right now. And so I hope this will be somehow of benefit for you, and so quite happy to share this with you. So questions, everything I think starts with a nice idea. And in our case, we are working on the avoidance of greenhouse gas in industrial areas, so in the area of electrical switchgear. So we try to avoid SF6, and SF6 gas in switchgear, that's an extremely powerful greenhouse gas. And so everybody wants to get rid of this. And that's why we are working solutions there on high voltage switchgear, and set up a project together with a partner. And this is, in this case, it's TSO in Belgium, the Belgian TSO, it's Elia. So we set up a consortium with 2 partners, and to apply for this project and now to execute it. And so with the idea you have on the table, so your idea certainly will be a quite different one. But the first question, the key question is to find the right program and the right call which fits to your idea, to the project. And especially I think as all the different funding programs have different characteristics, and they're in regards to, I don't know, to maturity of topics they're addressing, to timeline, whatever, to the scope. And so the first step certainly is to find the right one, which perfectly fits to what we want to do. And then the question is how to best connect to this. So we try to find an anchor point in this program where we think, hey, our project fits and can support this program and the idea which are behind this program. And so in our case, as we have the SF6 and the switchgear as the key topics in our project, we screen programs and calls for finding something to connect to. And we were quite happy to find it in the LIFE program, in the submodule climate change mitigation. And as we've seen there, hey, the topic SF6 is addressed, and then within switchgear, we said, hey, that's great. they're waiting for us. We have to apply for it. And that's what we did. And so we were somehow successful. So a good thing. And another good thing about life in general, I think, is as soon as you somehow support the idea behind it and the targets of the program and can show an impact with what you're doing, you have some nice freedom in this life program. So some nice freedom to really define what you want to do in your project. So in regards to timeline and scope and partner and with partner or without partner. So much more freedom than compared to other programs. So that's good in life, and just use it, the freedom which is given here. The question right now is, you have a nice program and it fits to you have found your anchor point in this program. So what makes you successful in this? To be honest, I cannot answer to you. So we have some ideas and what might have helped us and would be important. So one thing is where we spend some time on is working on the session of impact. Try to make this really transparent and show what's the impact out of our project in regards to the targets of the program, and in our case, and avoidance of emissions. And for the impact, you can tell a lot of nice stories about it. You can tell a nice stories with flowery words, but at a certain point, you have to come to real hard facts and describe and make transparent that there are real measurable impact behind it. And so it certainly makes sense to spend some time on this and made it as well understandable for the rest of organization who is maybe not so much in the details as yourself. So impact is a topic. Another topic where we spent some time on was maybe a kind of different area. There's a topic connecting your topic to the other activities, so to the rest of the world, to make sure somewhere and show that what you're doing not a kind of standalone activity, disconnected from what others are doing. So we try to show that it's somewhat connected to other things we have done before and which are other projects, so that we can build with this application there on things we've done before, and then that we can show as well that it's a kind of benefit than as for other topics which are coming afterwards. And so connecting, but the connection not only with your own things, but as well as the rest of the world, with other projects which is done by other partners in the LIFE program or other EU-funded programs, or even in, let's say, in the market, other stakeholders there, in public life, whatever the characteristic of your project is about. No? So looking at the item of connection, show that you're connected and you create some benefit, and this looking at it from different viewpoints, I think was quite important for us, and to have a look at this. Maybe some topics, lessons learned, or was this a question? There are certainly so many lessons learned out of it that it could spend much more time on this. One critical topic certainly is, from my point of view, the time. So time. Right now we are in May, and if you get the information about the call in April, maybe, so it seems to be the deadline in September. It seems to be far away. So a lot of time. September seems to be end of the year, but it really takes a lot of time for the preparation of the application. So let's say the document itself and all the stuff you need for it, budget calculation and whatever. But it takes as well time for things as internal alignment. So the bigger the organization is, the more time you certainly need to align with the technical guys, with the commercial guys, with the legal guys. If you're in a consortium, so we are in a consortium here with two, which is quite easy then with two partners, but as well, this takes some time for alignment topics here. And then with these calls, we have the deadline in September, so the holiday season is in between. And it's a topic which we definitely underestimated. So there's always somebody missing, somebody off. There's in July, somebody off in August, somebody in September. So if you need the people there, somewhere on holidays. So it really decreases the efficiency in the process of preparing the application. So have a look at this as well, and try to be as early as possible. And this time issue as well continues and afterwards. When you are hopefully successful with the application, the phase afterwards, the grant agreement phase comes, and again, yeah, there's some things to do. The phase of, let's say, align with the European Commission. That's a part of the grant agreement documents where somewhat driven through the process, so no chance, and you will be in time. But the other thing as well, you have if you're in a consortium, the consortium agreement, and there in our role now in the consortium, we are the consortium lead. We have to make sure that we as well in time with the preparation of this consortium agreement, and there again the topics of alignment between the partners, internal, and definitely as soon as there are two legal units involved, there will certainly be some iteration. So you need time, and big let's say recommendation would be to use as much as possible the standardized templates which are available for consortium agreement. So that makes life, I think, much easier. So time, besides time, maybe another aspect there from being an industrial company here. So the program itself hints at really demonstrating that the things your ideas are really working, that you have a phase of demonstration of proving it. In our case, it means we have to build something. So we have in our project the phases of developing or finalizing development of a switchgear, and then the demonstration phase in the grid of the system operator there. So that means we have to manufacture it. We have to go into the factory for testing, for manufacturing, and there you're automatically in an industrial environment. And as an industrial company, that means as well that we are somehow follow to the rules which are existing there. So that means information are available, data are available, and the data might not always fit to what is required there from life in regards to information needed, for example, for cost claiming. So make sure early enough that you check which information are available. And maybe you come to a point where you then have to decide on would you put more internal efforts on the process to get and create some more data, or just to accept that you cannot claim all the cost. So to avoid any surprise afterwards, make sure that you're fine with this and check this early enough. But however, with all this experience there, we can clearly say we got great support from the CHINEA team behind it to clarify open topics. So my conclusion for you would be, it's a lot of work to do. It is definitely, but it's worth doing it, and it's a great team behind it who supports you. So my recommendation: go for it, and have success with this, and have fun. So that's it. Thanks a lot. Happy to receive any questions afterwards.
Thank you, Martin. A very, very valuable insight from a coordinator's point of view. And there is already one question which I just picked because it just popped up in the Slido, which I can read it to you. Thank you for sharing your experience. Could you comment on your strategy to cover the 40% budget, so your own contribution, given that the maximum funding rate is 60%?
Yeah, there's no big strategy behind it. So the first thing I think you have to be aware of, let's say at the end of the day, you have a nominal 60% funding rate is the effective one. If you look at all the, let's say what finally comes out might be a little bit less. So 50% is just a thumb rule. We go with, you have to pay 50% by yourself. And that's the money you need. So in an organization like for us, industrial company, we have to decide internally, is the topic important for us? Then we decide early enough, we get the commitment of the management side. Yes, if we win, there will be money and resources available. So that's an internal process. You have to get the commitment, and then afterwards, and then in the organization, the money will be allocated to this project.
Thank you. Then I would like to jump to one question further below, which is asked by Dejan. And I would like to ask Stephanie Hiesinger to answer that question. And it reads, for the mitigation call point 4, are proposals expected to focus on biogas and biomethane from waste and residue streams, or, for example, making set plans for villages would be acceptable? Would you be able to answer that question? So set plan would be the strategic energy technology plan.
No, I can be very honest about that I'm not able to answer that question, and I also don't think it's appropriate to give this advice as part of this info day, which is related to a very specific project. So I think in that regard would be better if the project coordinator comes back bilaterally to look at that.
Okay, thank you. I then would go to the first question, which received a lot of likes, 14 questions. Can building renovations to improve energy efficiency be covered by LIFE funding? Yes, I mean, the clear answer is yes, but the follow-up question would be under which sub-program? And here we have a very clear distinction between the sub-program Clean Energy Transition. So I would like to call to ask Mr. or Mrs. Anonymous to participate in tomorrow's session for the Clean Energy Transition sub-program to see, because one of the focus is to improve energy efficiency in buildings renovation. But whatever is not covered under the LIFE CET or Clean Energy Transition, because they fund more the brains rather than the bricks. We are more here for the bricks. So if it's really going into demonstration and demo in making the building stock more resilient, then of course you can also look into the priority. I'm just trying to check the right one, which is looking at the number 4, the increase in the generation and the use of renewable energy and improvement of energy efficiency. But when you read this priority, you will not find the buildings as such. It is eligible, but you would not receive maybe sufficient point in terms of the relevance. So please have a look also into the presentation tomorrow. Now, are there any priorities for adapting cities and urban authorities to climate change? Miriam, I don't know whether you want to answer that one.
Yes, I can say a few words here. So indeed, cities are not explicitly mentioned, but you will find the topics, urban topics, in all, almost in all priorities. So, for example, when it comes to implementing urban adaptation plans and strategies, decision support tools, also nature-based implementing of nature-based solutions, adapting critical infrastructure and buildings. So I think, urban authorities are an important stakeholder, and if you look into the topics, and you will find indeed relevant areas where urban authorities can relate to.
Good. Make sure that you put the nature-based solutions up front when you describe your proposal. Then you are right in the right, in the correct priority. Is the project expected to focus on a single scope and area of intervention, or is it preferably to cover multiple scopes? Well, our advice is usually stay focused and do not dilute your proposal with too many ramifications, because sometimes one gets lost, and external evaluators who have to assess the proposals, they do not see anymore what is the purpose and the objective of the proposal anymore. So try to stay focused, and if it's beneficial for achieving the objectives you want to achieve with your project, then yes, of course, you can address several scopes, but try to focus and keep a relatively simple track. In the first award criteria, we award also synergies with other policies, and this is where you can maybe also address the other areas you may want to cover. Could you explain a little on the importance of KPIs and measuring impact, and which KPIs are mandatory for the climate sub-program? I don't know, maybe Chris, if you would like to answer that one.
Yes, Ben, of course. Yeah, so the KPIs are very important because we need to monitor how are you spending the money and what objectives and what are you achieving during the projects. So of course, for our part, the main part is about the reduction, what you will achieve through your project, how much of the reduction you will achieve. It's not like a mandatory catalog that you need to point this and that, but of course the reduction needs to be there. The bigger catalog of that, of course, is better, but focus on the reduction.
Good, thank you. The next question is related to local adaptation plans, so municipal or natural parks can be covered by LIFE funding. Yes, clear answer is yes. Local adaptation plans are very much welcome to implement them. Then the question on what is the success rate of proposals under Klima. There is a certain tendency that projects get bigger in terms of volume. So that means with the budget which we have available, fewer projects can be funded. At the moment, it's a funding rate of between 10 and 20%. But it depends very much on the priority, whether it's climate change mitigation, adaptation, or governance, and also different. There is differing between the years, but you have an approximate idea. Then the next question, the more areas of intervention a single proposal tackles, the better score it will get. I think I answered that question already. Keep focused, better, fewer objectives than trying to be very broad. What is the procedure if we were never involved in the LIFE program? Well, I hope the question partly was answered by the project coordinator from Siemens Energy, Martin Rolf. So he engaged, he described how they got into it. And I mean, the first step is you are here in the info day. You receive first-hand advice in how to start. There will be more sessions to come. Also in the afternoon, a session on how to prepare a proposal. Then you have a network of or there is a network of national contact points. They provide you advice in your respective member state, and they provide you advice also in the national language. And here I would like to make the point that LIFE program, because Martin mentioned the flexibility of the program. One of the flexibilities also that you can submit in your national language, and we evaluate it properly also submitted in your national language. So even that is possible, and so you should not be afraid to dive into it and enter this experience. Then I would like to move on. If intellectual property is created during a LIFE project, who owns it? For example, is the entity providing the most of the 40% co-funding? I don't know whether there's anyone from...
I can answer.
Yeah?
I can answer. Normally, it's being set up within the consortium, so we need to have the agreement within the consortium who will have the intellectual property rights after that. So this is more internal thing than ours, but of course we need to know, and we'll ask you that question. So it's better to target that straight away in the application when you will write it very clearly. But this is an internal thing.
Then we have, thanks. So we have one under CCM, maybe for Stephanie, area 5 in the call, so which is related to reduce energy use and greenhouse gas emissions in the industrial production and waste management. For these sub-applicants can propose preparatory work such as development of strategies and pre-feasibility studies. Does this description cover FED studies and basic design package? Stephanie, would you have an idea on that?
I'm not entirely sure, but in my view, it would cover all sorts of preliminary studies that would be required to get the project started. So I would assume yes.
Okay, good.
I can compliment Bernd very quickly as well to Stephanie, exactly what she said. The FED is normally separate to the feasibility study, but is building on its results. So if it will be justified in the proposal why it's needed, why it was important, of course, and then it could be eligible. But please always remember about justification for those costs. So as Stephanie said, yes, it should be eligible.
Mm-hmm. Okay, then Dimitris asks on climate change mitigation, are projects on demonstrating solar heating and cooling solutions in industrial applications eligible? I mean, my basic answer would be yes, but maybe Stephanie, how would you see that as in terms of priority? You're muted.
Can you repeat the question?
The question reads, are projects demonstrating solar heating and cooling solutions in industrial applications eligible? I mean, eligible, yes, they are. But in terms of priority, would you see a high priority for you in terms of policy?
Well, in terms of policy, we have a number of policies to not only to support solar, but we also have as a priority currently to decarbonize industrial heating. So indeed, yeah, if that, I mean, it's very difficult to pronounce myself on a project in an abstract with this kind of question because I don't know what is behind that question. But of course, reducing emissions in industry is a big political priority, and that goes also via reducing emissions from industrial heating and moving towards renewables. So in that sense, yes. But I cannot relate it to the call and say this is a priority under the call. It is definitely eligible, yes.
Good, thank you. Then the next question, I'm interested in submitting a proposal to Life Climate on enhanced weathering for mitigation. I understand need for relatively high TRL, but can you give me more information on scope and some basic scientific research with such a project? Chris, you mentioned TRL. Maybe that's you're the right person.
Yes, so you need to start at TRL 5 for that part, of course. Normally, we do not support a big researchers under the life and under that part. So it all depends. It all depends what exactly you want to do. It all depends what will be written in the application. So I don't think we can give more specific answer to that question, but you can always come to us bilaterally.
Okay, thank you. Then there is one question related to NGOs, whether NGOs can participate. Yes, of course they can. And what are the minimum requirements? Well, there are no minimum requirements except that your financial viability needs to be solid enough, and you can check and test this on the funding and tender portal. And you need to be sure that you will be able to manage a reasonably sized project. I mean, you have seen the amounts. You're talking about 1, 2, even up to 5 million project. So you, of course, need to be able to manage such a project and be able to cover your own funding, the 40% funding for that. Then we move to the next one for the mitigation call point. Oh, no, that one we had already. You can remove that one of Dejan. So then the next project would be, can projects with less budget needed, for example, 200,000 euros, also be submitted? I would say not really. Try to get together with like-minded stakeholders and try to submit something with a bigger scale. Unfortunately, the LIFE program, I mean, this is where the flexibility has its limit. Going that low would probably not be sufficient in terms of the impacts. Then there is a question on, we are currently between the TRL level 4 and 5. Will it negatively impact on the proposal for the climate change mitigation subprogram? Chris, you're so much focused on the 5. I would say between 4 and 5 we can still accept, isn't it?
Exactly. We are not very strict, but what we want to see is actually why are you still at the 4, and if you will reach the 8 during the project. This is very much important, how quick you can go through the phase and what you will deliver at the end. So no, but you need to justify that very well. So no, it will not affect and in a big part negatively, but please justify that and how quick you will reach the 8 and 9.
Okay, we have more questions here. I take 1 more minute. We plan to implement projects in the field of adaptation climate change. What are the mandatory requirements for partner or consortium? Well, you have to be a legal entity. I'm sure you followed yesterday's presentation from my colleague Licinia, and she provided the respective answer. And can be projects based on strategic documents, are they directly projects with equipment? Well, that's also a bit difficult to answer. I mean, strategic projects are always good. I mean, not to be confused with the strategic integrated projects. But we, of course, we would like to see projects where there are actual impacts during the duration of the project. So equipment, you build something, you develop something new, and do you test it in the ground? This is something we want to see. So I would say, because we have reached the time limit, or can we have maybe one last question? A digital monitoring decision support system used in municipalities for climate adaptation considered eligible? Yes, it's eligible. Sensor-supported AI-based application encouraged? Yes, you can do that. But again, as part of a concrete application and how you can demonstrate that the resilience of this municipality will increase with the use of this decision support system. So with this, I take the final one because it still has 3 likes, and the followings have only, still some coming up. I could not find the climate change mitigation adaptation indication about the consortium competition. Consortium competition can be, I mean, one legal entity can be already sufficient, but it depends really on the objectives of your proposal, what you want to achieve, and whom do you need to achieve these objectives, and those are the right partners you will need. And the minimum maximum financing limit for the projects, I already mentioned, or Diana mentioned that already. We are in the range of between 1 and 5 million of project budget, and 60% is the limit. So with this, I definitely close. Sorry for not being able to answer more of the many questions, but we will screen the questions and make answers also available. So thank you very much, and to all the speakers here, and in particular to Martin to make the effort to be here and to report on your project. Very much appreciated. And I would like to hand over to my colleague Eva, the Master of Ceremony of the entire Info Day. So floor is yours.
Yes, thank you very much, Bernd, and thank you to all the colleagues for your very interesting presentations, and thanks to Mr. Rolf as well. I would like to just take a few more minutes of your time to let you know that we will now have a break for about 10 minutes, that we will reconvene at 10:45 for a session on circular economy and quality of life, calls for proposals that will be moderated by my colleague Nadia Lamandas. However, just before you leave for the break, I would like to just ask you to quickly answer our poll on whether you are satisfied about the information that you received today on the call for proposal for the climate projects. So please just take a few moments to go to Slido and reply quickly just by saying how satisfied you are. And this is very important for us to get your feedback. Thank you in advance. And then see you at 10:45 for the information session on the circular economy and quality of life standard action projects. Bye-bye. See you later.